How was your day? See Perry's face. He was promised so much and given so little. Maybe today felt a little like that too. He's 31, he's been everywhere and belongs nowhere. Tonight, he's just a man waiting for a ride. That's where tonight begins. The book is in cold blood. The man is Perry Smith. You can close your eyes now. I'll keep reading. Nothing here needs you awake tonight. The book opens far from him on a quiet village on an ordinary autumn morning. Let's start there. This is where we read the greatest books ever written, slowly, together, with the lights off, one book, no pressure. Holcomb sits out on the high wheat plains of western Kansas. Lonesome country, hard, blue skies, wind that never quite stops. People here leave their doors unlocked. They know their neighbors. Nothing happens, and that's exactly how they like it. But somewhere out on the road, a black car is already moving toward them, and Perry is inside it, dreaming. Perry always dreamed big. Buried treasure, a singing career, a different life just over the next hill. None of it ever came. Here's the question I keep coming back to. How can one person hold so much tenderness and so much ruin at the same time? Capote spent 6 years asking that. He couldn't let it go by the end. Neither could anyone who read this book. 2 men in a car, 4 people asleep in a farmhouse, and a night that would tie them together forever. But we're not there yet. The night is still ahead, for now the house is warm, and everyone in it is alive. This is the strange weight of this book. You already know how it ends, and still you'll hope you're wrong. We'll stay with this one tonight. More great books, other worlds on other nights. If you drift off, it'll all still be here tomorrow. Let's meet the family while there's still time. The Clutters, the most respected name in Holcomb, and the kindest. Herb Clutter built it all from nothing. A good farm, a good name, the kind of man who never even drank coffee with worry. Here's where it gets tender. His daughter, Nancy, is 16, and everyone in town simply calls her the town darling. She bakes for half the county. She teaches younger girls to sew. Tonight, she's helping a neighbor's child with a cherry pie. Upstairs, her brother Kenyon is 15, quiet, always building something. Right now, a cedar chest, a gift for his sister's wedding someday. And there's Bonnie, their mother. She's been unwell for years. Some days the house feels too big and too quiet around her. Stay with this part? It matters later. Nancy keeps a diary. Every night, a few lines. Tonight's will be her last. She lays out her dress for church the next morning, smooths it once, sets her shoes beneath it, then turns out the light. Down the hall, Herb checks the doors out of habit, not fear. He has never once had a reason to be afraid. An insurance man had visited that very week. Herb signed a new policy and laughed about it. He felt safe. He felt finished worrying. This is the cruel, quiet thing about that day. Everything was in order. Every plan made. Every door of the future open. And many miles away, the black car keeps coming. Dick is driving. Perry watches the road. Neither of them knows the Clutters at all. They have a name and an address and a story about money in the house. The story is wrong, but they're already on their way. So tonight we'll hold both at once, the warm house and the headlights on the road. Let's stay with them, gently, a little longer. Let me tell you more about Nancy, because she's the one your heart will reach for. She was the kind of girl who remembered everyone's birthday. She had a horse named Babe and a boyfriend named Bobby. She had a future you could see from a mile off, bright and certain and good. Her father adored her, though he rarely said so. He showed it the way quiet men do, by making sure her world was steady. There was one small worry that autumn. Nancy thought she smelled cigarette smoke in the house sometimes. No one in the family smoked. She let it go. Kenyon, her brother, lived in his own quiet world of engines and wood and wire. He wasn't lonely. He just didn't need much company. He and his father had plans for the spring, new fences, a trip together, all the small, ordinary promises that fathers and sons quietly carry. Bonnie, the mother, moved through the house like someone half here. Her illness was of the nerves. Some seasons were better. This one had been gentle. At last week, Bonnie had felt almost well. She told a visitor she was finally coming back to herself. She sounded like she believed it. There were 2 older daughters. already grown and gone. Iviana and Beverly, married, busy, far away. They thought the worst was behind their mother. So that's the family. 4 of them under one roof that night. Ordinary, decent, loved. Nothing about them invited what was coming. That's the thing this book never lets you forget. They didn't do anything to deserve it. There is no reason, that's the hardest part. Capote understood that, so he refused to make them saints. He let them be people, small habits, small flaws, small private hopes. And then he turned the camera the other way, to the 2 strangers driving toward them. Because to understand the night, you have to understand them too. Dick Hickok first. He's 28, quick, charming, restless, the kind of man who could talk his way into anything and out of nothing. A car wreck years back had left his face slightly crooked, 2 halves that didn't quite match. People said it suited him somehow. Dick had a plan. He liked plans. Money in a farmhouse safe. An old cellmate had told him. A score. A clean, easy score. The cellmate had once worked for Herb Clutter. He talked about a safe full of cash. There was no safe. There never had been. Think about that. A rumor that wasn't even true. A few wrong words passed between 2 men in a cell. That's how it started. But Dick needed a partner. Someone who could do the part he wasn't sure he could. He thought of a man he'd met inside. He thought of Perry. If you drift off here, that's fine. The road keeps running through the dark whether you follow it or not. Perry is still riding west. Now Perry, he's the one this book can't look away from, and neither could Capote. He's 31, and his whole life is a kind of unhealed wound. His mother was a rodeo rider who drank herself to death. His father dragged him across the country and then away from him. There was no childhood to speak of. A motorcycle crash had wrecked his legs. They ached constantly. He chewed aspirin like candy and dreamed of walking into a different life. And yet, he drew. He read dictionaries for the pleasure of new words. He sang softly to himself. There was something gentle buried in him. That's the contradiction we have to carry tonight. The same man who could be so tender was the one who would do the unthinkable. When Dick's letter found him, Perry was broke and adrift in another state. The promise of money, of Mexico, of treasure beyond it, that was enough. Perry didn't really care about the safe. He cared about the after, the boat, the dive for sunken gold, the dream that always lived just past the next job. So the 2 of them met up. Dick with his plan, Perry with his dream. Each saw in the other something he thought he needed. Dick thought Perry was a natural-born killer. Perry thought Dick was bold and worldly. Both were wrong about each other. That mistake would cost everything. They bought supplies for the trip, rope, tape, a hunting knife, a shotgun. They called it preparation. They told themselves it was just in case. That afternoon they drove 400 miles across Kansas. Dick at the wheel, Perry beside him with his maps and his songs and his aspirin. They stopped for gas. They ate in a roadside diner. They looked, to anyone watching, like 2 ordinary men on an ordinary drive. No one looked twice. That's the quiet horror Capote keeps pointing at. Evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just orders coffee and pays the bill. As the sun went down, Perry grew uneasy. He kept asking Dick if he was sure. Dick kept saying yes. Perry kept not believing him. Here's the part most people miss. Both men that night were half hoping the other would call it off. Neither one did. That's how it happens. Back in Holcomb, the lights in the Clutter house went out one by one. Kenyon's first, then Nancy's, then the long hallway, then the porch. Herb was usually asleep by 10. He liked early mornings. He had no reason on earth to lie awake, so he didn't. Nancy lay in bed thinking about her dress, her horse, the boy she liked. Ordinary 16-year-old thoughts, the last ones she would ever have in peace. I want to leave them there for a moment, asleep, safe, loved, because that's how they should be remembered. That's who they really were. Out on the highway, the black car turned off the main road. The headlights found a gravel lane, a row of elms, a white house. Dick cut the engine. The night went very quiet, just the wind and the ticking of a cooling motor and 2 men deciding whether to move. This is the threshold, the last moment when nothing has happened yet, when the night could still turn back. We'll stop here, right at the edge. Capote chose not to show that night all at once. He held it back. He made us wait, the way the town would have to wait, for the truth. So for now, the house stays whole in our minds. The family stays asleep, the night holds its breath, and we let it. Tomorrow, the town will wake to something it can't understand, but that's tomorrow. Right now in this telling, the Clutters are still simply sleeping. Sunday morning came soft and clear. A neighbor girl arrived to drive Nancy to church. She knocked. No one answered. The house was strangely silent. She called out. She waited. Something felt wrong in a way she couldn't name. She went for help, her heart already beating too fast. Capote spares us the worst. He shows the town's reaction, not the rooms themselves. What the neighbors found, he lets us only quietly understand. The word moved through Holcomb faster than anyone could stop it. By noon, the whole county knew. By evening, the whole state. The Clutters were gone. Here's what changed forever that day. Not just 4 lives, a whole way of living. Holcomb had never locked its doors. After that morning, everyone did. Neighbors who'd known each other for decades began to wonder. If it could happen to the Clutters, it could happen to anyone, and maybe the killer was someone they knew. Suspicion crept into a town that had never needed it. Old friends looked at each other sideways. Fear is its own kind of crime. It steals trust. Into this came a man named Alvin Dewey, a detective with the State Bureau. He'd known Herb Clutter personally. This case wasn't a job to him, it was a wound. Dewey had almost nothing to work with. No motive that made sense. No weapon found, no witnesses. Just a house and a silence and a question with no answer. The only real clues were strange and small. Footprints in the dust, a pattern from the sole of a boot. It wasn't much, but Dewey held on to it. Meanwhile, far away, 2 men were driving south. They had what they came for, almost nothing. A radio, a pair of binoculars, $40, that was all. Think about the math of it. A whole family, an entire future traded for $40 and a radio. That's the senselessness Capote couldn't get past. They drove to Mexico, chasing Perry's dream of treasure and a fishing boat. For a few weeks they played at being free men. It didn't last. The money ran out. The dream curdled. Dick wanted to go back to the States and start writing bad checks again. Perry didn't want to, he went anyway. This is the strange gravity between them. Perry hated the road, he hated Dick half the time, but he had nowhere else, and no one else, so he stayed. Back in Kansas, Dewey worked himself sick. He barely slept. He read the case files until the words blurred. He carried it home and couldn't put it down. His wife found him staring at the wall some nights. He kept saying he just wanted to know why. Not even who at first, just why. The investigation stalled, weeks passed. The town stayed locked and afraid, and it might have stayed unsolved forever, if not for one man in a prison cell. The cellmate who'd started it all, the one who'd told Dick about the Clutter safe, heard about the murders on the radio, and he understood instantly what he'd done. If you drift off here, that's fine. The story keeps going on its own. The truth is already moving toward Dewey, one nervous confession at a time. The cellmate asked to speak to the warden. His hands were shaking. He said he thought he knew who killed the Clutter family. He gave them 2 names, Richard Hickok, Perry Smith. When that tip reached Dewey's desk, something in him went very still. For the first time in weeks, he had a thread to pull. But a name isn't a capture. Hickok and Smith were somewhere out in the country, drifting, passing through towns no one was watching. Dewey had to find them first. And here's where it gets quietly tense. The 2 men had no idea anyone knew their names. They thought they'd gotten away clean. They were almost relaxed. They passed bad checks across half a dozen towns, small crimes, the kind that leave a paper trail, each one a breadcrumb, each one a step closer to the end. Perry collected things along the way, small treasures, a pair of binoculars, postcards, a box of his own drawings and notes that he refused to throw away. That box would matter. Perry kept everything, even things that could destroy him. Even a pair of boots with a sole that left a very particular print. Dewey learned the men had been in Mexico, then come back. He learned about the checks. The map of their wanderings slowly filled in, town by town. The net was tightening. Slowly, invisibly, the 2 men felt nothing. They were headed back toward the west, toward Las Vegas, toward the last days of their freedom. Perry, though, had started to come apart inside. He dreamed of the night, Again and again, he couldn't say so, but it was eating him from within. Dick, by contrast, slept fine. He felt no weight at all. That difference between them is the whole heart of the book. One man haunted, one man hollow. Capote sat with that contrast for years. Was Perry's guilt a kind of conscience, or just self-pity? He never fully decided. He let it stay uncomfortable. In Las Vegas, the two men were nearly broke again. They planned to collect a package Perry had mailed to himself, the box with all his keepsakes inside. That box, full of Perry's drawings and dreams, was about to draw the police straight to them. The thing he couldn't bear to throw away would be his undoing. Dewey's team had spread descriptions of the men in their car across several states. A black Chevrolet, a license plate, 2 drifters. Now they just had to wait. And in Las Vegas, a patrol officer noticed a battered black Chevrolet with out-of-state plates rolling slowly down a main street. Something about it matched a bulletin he'd read. He radioed it in, the plate matched, the car matched. After all those weeks of nothing, the whole case suddenly turned on a single quiet street in a single quiet moment. They pulled the car over without drama, no chase, no struggle. 2 tired men on a bright street, suddenly out of road. Dick smiled. Perry went very pale. At first, they were only held on the bad checks. The officers didn't say the word Kansas. They wanted the 2 men calm. They wanted them talking. Word flew to Kansas. Dewey got the call he'd waited weeks for. He and another agent drove west through the night to do the questioning themselves. The plan was simple and patient. Question the 2 men separately. Don't reveal what you know. Let each one wonder what the other is saying. And wait. Dick was confident at first, smooth. He had an alibi all ready. He thought he could talk his way through anything. He had always thought that, but the detectives were patient. They let his story stretch and contradict itself. They mentioned the boots, the print in the dust. Slowly, his easy smile began to slip. In the other room, Perry held out longer. He was a hard man to read, but the detectives had a plan that would crack them both wide open. They told Dick a lie that there had been a witness, that someone had seen the car near the farm. It wasn't true, but Dick didn't know that. Dick broke, quietly, all at once. He admitted they'd been at the farm, but then he did the thing that would define him. He blamed it all on Perry. They went to Perry next. They told him Dick had talked, that Dick had put it all on him, and they watched something in Perry's face quietly give way. That betrayal undid him, not the evidence, not the law, the fact that Dick, his partner, had handed him over to save himself. So Perry decided to tell the truth. What Perry said next would fill the most haunting pages of the book, the full account of that night. Not to excuse himself, just, finally, to say it out loud. We'll come to that night, but gently, the way Capote did. For now, both men were caught. The weeks of searching were over, and the hardest questions were just beginning. Perry's account began the way the night did. 2 men, a dark house, a wrong belief that a fortune was waiting inside. They went in quietly through an unlocked door. They woke the family. They searched for the safe that wasn't there, and when there was no money, only a frightened, decent family, the night went terribly wrong. Capote does not linger on what happened next. He lets it stay in shadow. He gives us the before and the after, and trusts us not to need the middle. The room went very quiet after that. 4 lives ended in the space of a few hours, for nothing. For a rumor, for $40. The senselessness is the whole point. Killing a family for money they didn't have was violence beyond reason. What the book asks next requires something else entirely. Not horror, but the harder work of understanding. Here's the part that has haunted readers for 60 years. Perry said that, in the moments before, he had felt strangely tender toward the family. He'd tried to make them comfortable. He had laid a pillow beneath one of them, spoken gently, and then he had done the unforgivable anyway. That contradiction is the dark center of this whole book. Perry tried to explain it and couldn't. He said it was like something happened that wasn't even him, as if he'd watched himself from somewhere far away. Capote believed Perry's mind had cracked somewhere long ago, in a childhood of abandonment and cruelty, not as an excuse, as an explanation that still wasn't enough. And Dick? Dick had done less of the killing, but conceived the whole thing. He felt no guilt, only annoyance at being caught. Two very different kinds of darkness. With the full confessions written down, it was time to bring them home. Home in this case meant Kansas, meant Garden City, meant facing the town they had shattered. The whole county wanted to see them. Word spread that the killers were coming. A crowd gathered outside the courthouse, silent in the cold, just to look at their faces. Capote noted something strange. The crowd was quiet. No shouting, no fury, just a deep, stunned need to understand what kind of person could do such a thing. They were placed in the county jail to await trial. Perry's cell was near the home of the undersheriff. The undersheriff's wife began bringing him meals. She felt sorry for him. Many people did, in spite of everything. He was gentle in the cell. He drew, he read. He thanked her softly every time. That's the impossible thing the whole town wrestled with. The same hands that drew those careful little birds had done what they had done. Both were real. Both were him. Down the corridor, Dick wrote letters and made plans. He talked about appeals, about loopholes, about getting out. He never once spoke of the family. Not once. The contrast deepened the longer they waited. Perry sinking into memory and regret. Dick scheming and restless, two men chained to the same fate, facing it in opposite ways. The town prepared for the trial. Reporters arrived from far away, and among them a small, soft-spoken writer from New York, with a notebook and an endless patience. We'll meet him properly later. But first, the town had to bury its dead. The Clutters were laid to rest together on a gray morning, beneath the same wide Kansas sky that had watched over them all their lives. The whole county came. People who'd known Herb, who'd eaten Nancy's pies, who'd watched Kenyon grow. They stood together in the cold and tried to make sense of an empty space. Nancy's horse, Babe, was sold soon after. A small thing, but it broke people's hearts almost as much as the rest. The little ordinary losses on top of the unbearable one. The farm itself stood empty. The wheat was harvested by other hands. The White House waited, dark and quiet, for someone new to fill it. It would take a long time. This is the low place in the story. The grief settled over everything, heavy and quiet. The crime was solved, but nothing felt resolved. Some losses don't close. This is why we read these books at night, for the part that still holds even in the dark. Breathe here. The story keeps going on its own for a moment. As winter deepened, the trial drew near. The state wanted the death penalty. The defense had almost nothing to work with. 2 confessions and a town that had already grieved. The defense lawyers tried one argument that mattered. Were these men sane? Could a person who did such a thing and felt so little truly be held fully responsible? It was a real question and a deep one, but the law of that time and place left little room for it. The jury would hear the facts, and the facts were terrible. Perry sat through it all very quietly. He'd given up hope. Mostly he seemed more interested in the small writer in the gallery than in his own defense. That small writer was Truman Capote, and by now he and Perry had begun to talk. Long conversations through the bars, the beginning of one of literature's strangest friendships. We'll return to that friendship. It's its own remarkable story. But first, the trial reached its end. The jury did not take long, a few hours, and they were back. Guilty, both of them, and the sentence the law allowed, and the town expected death. Perry took it without expression. Dick's face finally, at last, went pale. They were sent to the state penitentiary, to a place the prisoners called death row, to wait, and in that era, waiting meant years, appeal after appeal, year after year. 5 years in the end, 5 years in a cell barely longer than a man. 5 years for Perry to read and draw and write letters and slowly become someone Capote couldn't abandon. Capote visited them both over and over. He brought books. He brought money for treats. He listened for hours. He was writing a book, but it became something more than that to him. Perry came to trust him completely. He told Capote things he'd never told anyone. His dreams, his childhood, the strange parrot he imagined as a guardian angel since he was a boy. And here's the knot at the center of it all. Capote needed the ending of his book, and the ending was their execution. To finish, he needed them to die. It tore him apart, and it would haunt him for the rest of his life. He had grown to love Perry, and he was waiting, however quietly, for Perry to be hanged. That's the moral weight this book carries beyond its pages. The author wasn't outside the story, he was inside it, tangled in it, changed by it. He never fully recovered. But that comes later. For now, the men were on death row, the appeals were grinding slowly through the courts, and the years were passing. Let's slow down here too. On death row, Perry met other condemned men. One of them, a quiet young man, became a kind of friend. They talked through the bars about books and birds and regret. Perry spent his time trying to improve himself. He studied words, he filled notebooks as if even now with no future left, he was still preparing for the life he'd always wanted. There's something almost unbearable in that. A man with no tomorrow, still trying to become better, still hoping in some small way. Hope is stubborn, even there. Even then, Dick spent his years differently, filing motions, demanding retrials, convinced some technicality would save him. He clung to the system that was slowly, certainly, closing around him. The appeals dragged on for years, each one denied, each one bringing the date a little closer. The two men lived inside a slow, narrowing hallway, and they both knew where it ended. Capote kept visiting, kept writing. The book grew thick with everything he'd gathered, the family, the town, the killers, the law. Thousands of pages of notes, 6 years of his life. He couldn't finish it while they lived. The ending wasn't his to write, it belonged to a date on a calendar, and to a small room at the prison no one wanted to describe. And so the years closed in, the final appeal was denied, the date was set. We're nearing the part of the story that nobody, not even Capote, wanted to reach. But before we go there, let's pause. The story is heavy now, and you've carried it gently this far. Let it rest a moment. The hardest pages can wait for us. When you're ready, we'll go on. Capote took the train back to Kansas one last time. He'd promised Perry he would be there at the end. He almost couldn't bear to keep the promise. The two men spent their last day quietly. Perry wrote letters. He gave away his few belongings, his books, his drawings, to the people who'd been kind to him. Capote couldn't watch the end itself. He stood apart, in the shadows of that cold room, and looked away. But he was there. He'd kept his terrible promise. Capote spares us the act as he always does. He gives us the quiet before and the quiet after. The room went still, and then it was over, for both of them. An execution was the law's answer, but it answered nothing. The Clutters were still gone. The why was still unanswered. Justice and peace, it turns out, are not the same thing. Capote walked out into the gray Kansas morning carrying the end of his book, and a grief he would never set down. We'll sit with what he made of it next. After the executions, Holcomb tried to return to ordinary life. The locks stayed on the doors now, but slowly the fear loosened its grip. People exhaled. Time did its patient work. The Clutter farm was bought by a new family. Children's voices filled the rooms again. The wheat grew back, the way it always does, season after season, indifferent and green. Alvin Dewey, the detective, finally slept. The case that had nearly broken him was closed. He visited the Clutter graves sometimes, quietly, the way you'd visit old friends. Capote ends his book at one of those graves, on a soft day, with Dewey meeting by chance a young woman who had been Nancy's best friend, now grown, alive, carrying the future forward. It's a quiet, almost gentle ending. No drama, just the wheat and the wind and life going on. Capote knew that's how grief really ends, not with answers, but with continuation. But the book doesn't really let you go. You close it and the questions stay. Why did it happen? Could anyone have stopped it? What do we do with a man like Perry? Capote refused to give a tidy answer. He showed you a monster and a wounded child living in the same body, and he asked you to hold both without flinching. That's what made the book revolutionary. It didn't tell you what to feel. It made you feel everything at once, pity and horror, tenderness and revulsion, and live with the discomfort. People still argue about Perry. Was he sick or evil or both? Did his ruined childhood explain him or excuse him? The book gives you everything except the comfort of a verdict. And it asks a question about us, too, about the death penalty, about whether ending a life can ever truly heal the wound of a life taken. Capote left that door wide open. For the families, for the town, the executions brought a kind of ending, but Capote, watching it all, came away convinced that no one had really won. Everyone had only lost. That's the rare honesty of this book. It refuses to let anyone off easy, not the killers, not the system, not even the reader, sitting safe and curious in the dark. And yet, for all its darkness, the book leaves you with something tender. The memory of Nancy's kindness, of Kenyon's quiet hands, of a family that was simply good, that endures. Capote wanted us to remember them as people, not just as victims, as Nancy with her pies and her diary, as Herb with his orderly fields, as a life, not just a death. That's the gift of this strange, sad, beautiful book. It takes the worst thing people can do and finds underneath it the people, all of them, even the ones who did it. The greatest books, not to teach you anything, just to sit with you for a while, in the dark, and remind you that people are more than the worst or best thing they ever did. There's a strange comfort in being told the whole truth, even a hard one. Capote trusted us with it, and in trusting us, he made something that has outlasted everyone in it. We've reached the still water of the story now. The crime, the chase, the trial, the long wait, all behind us. What's left is reflection, and reflection is a gentle place to rest. So if your eyes are heavy now, let them be. The hardest part of the story is told. What remains is quiet, the meaning of it, and the man who set it all down on paper. This is the part that stays with you. Not the crime, the kindness around it, the neighbor girl, the detective at the graves, the small mercies that survive even this. Breathe. They keep going on their own. There's one more thread to follow, and it's a haunting one. The story of the man who wrote it all down, because In Cold Blood didn't just record a tragedy, it created one more. We'll come to Capote's own story in a little while, how this book made him famous, and how it slowly unmade him. For now, just hold the shape of what we've read. A family who did everything right, and lost everything anyway. Two broken men who threw away every life involved, including their own, and a writer who couldn't look away and paid for it. It's a lot to hold, but you don't have to hold it tightly. Let it rest in you the way a sad song does there, but soft and somehow comforting in its honesty. The wheat is still out there tonight, growing in the Kansas dark, the way it was before any of this, the way it will be long after. Some things just keep on, gently. Let me sit with one question a little longer, softly while you rest. The book's deepest puzzle is Perry, and whether understanding someone means we have to forgive them. Capote's answer, I think, was no. Understanding isn't forgiveness. You can grasp exactly why a thing happened and still know it should never have. Both can be true. They have to be. That's a hard, grown-up kind of wisdom, not the comfort of heroes and villains, the harder comfort of seeing people whole and choosing to look anyway with clear and steady eyes. And there's a mercy in it for us, too. If even Perry was more than his worst hour, then so are we. None of us is only the worst day we ever had. Maybe that's why this dark book can feel oddly gentle at the end. It isn't really about the killing, it's about how complicated and tender and ruined a single human being can be. We tend to want our villains simple. It lets us sleep. Capote took that comfort away and gave us a harder, truer one instead, the comfort of being told the truth. It's the kind of truth that makes you quieter, kinder maybe, a little slower to judge the stranger in the next seat, who is also carrying a whole life you cannot see. That, in the end, is what literature does that nothing else can. It puts you inside another person, even one you'd never choose, and you come back changed, a little wider, a little softer. Capote understood that power, and he used it on the hardest possible subject. That's the audacity of this book. He pointed it at a monster and found a person and made us see it too. It cost him to do it. We'll see how much, soon. But what he made is still here, decades later, teaching readers in the dark to be braver and gentler at the same time. So that's the story. Mostly told now. The crime that shattered a town. The two men who did it, the detective who caught them, the family we'll never forget, and the writer who carried it all. What's left now is the quiet after the story, the part where we sit with what it meant and where it came from and why people still reach for it on nights like this one. If you're still with me, thank you for staying through the dark middle of it, and if you've drifted, that's all right too. The gentlest part of the night is just ahead. Before we turn to the man who wrote it, let's leave the Clutters where Capote left them, not in that terrible night, but in the warm, ordinary life that came before. Nancy, finishing a pie. Kenyon sanding his cedar chest, Bonnie feeling almost well, Herb content at his desk. A single golden evening before the headlights ever found the lane. That's the image to keep. Not the ending. The living Capote gave us the whole of them, so that what we'd remember would be the people and not only the loss. And so we closed the story itself gently and turned toward the quieter rooms beyond it, toward the man with the notebook and the long, strange aftermath of what he made. Rest your shoulders now. The tension of the story is behind us. What's ahead is softer, the history, the meaning, the way this book settled into the world and stayed. Let your breathing slow to match the wind out there in the grain. In and out, unhurried. The way the plains have breathed for 10,000 years, with or without us. Whenever you're ready, we'll go on quietly to The Small Man from New York, and how one book about a Kansas night changed American writing forever and broke its author's heart. The story is whole now in your mind. The house, the road, the long aftermath, hold it loosely. We've reached the still, reflective heart of the night, and there's no hurry left in it. Capote called it a nonfiction novel. Every fact was real. Every name was true. And yet he shaped it like a great tragedy, so it would land in your chest, not just your mind. That blend, real life told with a novelist's heart, was brand new in 1966. Nobody had quite done it before. It would change how stories were told for generations after. We'll trace all of that next, who Truman Capote was, how he came to a tiny Kansas town, and why he could never quite leave it again. But softly, the hard part is behind us. So settle in a little deeper, pull the quiet around you. The story's done its hard work for tonight. What's left is just talk, soft and slow, between friends in the dark. Plains are dark now, the village sleeps, the wheat keeps its slow vigil under the stars, and somewhere in your mind, the Clutters kitchen light is still warm, still on. That warmth is what survives. Not the headlights, not the cold room at the prison, the pie cooling on the counter, the diary by the lamp, the small, good, ordinary love. Let that be the picture you keep as we move on. The good that was real, the love that existed, it was here, it mattered. Nothing that came after can take that away. We've come through the whole story together. Gently, I hope. Now the night opens into its softest hours, and we'll spend them quietly, talking of the book and the world it changed. So breathe out and stay close if you like. The story is told, what remains is the quiet wonder of how it came to be and why all these years on it still finds us. If you drift off here, that's perfect. This is where the story rests. Let me just talk softly about the man who gathered all of this together. Truman Capote was already famous when he came to Kansas, a small, brilliant man from the New York literary world, known for his wit, his charm, his dazzling early novels. He read a short newspaper item about the Clutter murders, just a few paragraphs. Something in it caught him and wouldn't let go. He decided to go and see for himself. He brought a friend with him, the writer Harper Lee, who would soon publish her own famous book. She helped him win the trust of a wary, grieving town. At first, Holcomb didn't trust him at all. He was strange to them, his clothes, his voice, his city manner, but he was patient. He stayed. He listened. Slowly, the town opened. He interviewed everyone, neighbors, the sheriff, the school teachers, the friends. He filled notebook after notebook. He had a remarkable memory. He could recall whole conversations word for word. And then the killers were caught. And Capote's project changed entirely. Now he could meet them. Now he could ask the question that had drawn him here, why? He spoke with Dick, who was glib and evasive, but it was Perry who undid him. In Perry, Capote saw something of himself, a wounded child, abandoned, dreaming of escape. Capote, too, had been an abandoned child, left by his parents, shuttled among relatives, lonely and awed and aching to be loved. He looked at Perry and saw a road he might have walked. That's the secret engine of this book. Capote wasn't writing about a stranger. He was writing about a version of himself who had broken instead of survived. That's why it cuts so deep. For years, Capote drove back and forth to that prison. He brought Perry books, food, attention, friendship. He became, in some real way, the family Perry never had. But here's the terrible knot. To finish his masterpiece, Capote needed an ending, and the only ending was Perry's death. He needed the man he loved to be executed. Some say he grew impatient with the endless appeals. That part of him willed the end to come, so the book could be done. If that's true, it's a guilt no one should carry. When the end finally came, Capote was there, as he'd promised Perry, and it shattered something in him that never healed. He had his ending. He had lost his friend to get it. The book came out in 1966, and it was a sensation. Praised everywhere. A bestseller, Capote was, for a moment, the most celebrated writer in America. He had everything he'd wanted. But the triumph was hollow. The thing that made him famous had also broken him. He had looked too long into the dark, and some of it had come home with him for good. He never finished another book. Not really. The 6 years he gave to Holcomb seemed to use up something in him. In a way, In Cold Blood was both his greatest gift and his undoing. There's a lesson in that, quiet and sad. Some stories ask everything of the person who tells them. Capote gave everything, and the book that resulted will outlive us all. It helps to remember the world this book entered. America in the mid-1960s was uneasy. The optimism of the post-war years was cracking. People sensed darkness under the calm surface. The Clutter murders touched a deep fear that violence could reach even the safest, most decent corner of the country, that no white picket fence was truly a wall. Capote understood that fear, and he didn't soothe it. He looked straight at it. He said, in effect, yes, this can happen, and here is exactly how, and here are the people it happened to. It was also a moment when America was beginning to question the death penalty itself. The book landed right in the middle of that debate and quietly weighted it, by making us know Perry, really know him. Capote made his execution feel like a loss, not a victory. He never argued a position, he just made you feel the weight of it. That's the quiet power of the nonfiction novel he invented. Facts inform you, but a story makes you feel. Capote married the two, and the result changed people, not just minds. The town of Holcomb never asked for any of this fame. For years afterwards, strangers came to see the farm, the graves, the places from the book. The town mostly wished to be left in peace. That tension never fully resolves. The book gave the Clutters a strange immortality, but it also kept their worst night alive forever. A gift and a burden, both. Capote spent his later years adrift. The brilliance dimmed, the work dried up. Friends drifted away. The man who'd written so unforgettably about loss became, slowly, a study in it himself. He died in 1984, never having matched what he made in that small Kansas town. In Cold Blood remained the summit of his life, and in a way, the cliff he fell from. It's a sobering thought for the small hours, that the things we make can use us up, that greatness sometimes costs the maker more than anyone watching ever knows. But let's not end on his sorrow, because what he made was real and good and lasting. It still teaches people to feel more and judge less and look at the whole of a human being. That's the strange alchemy of it. Out of the worst thing, a senseless, brutal loss, Capote drew something that makes readers kinder. The darkness became somehow a kind of light. And maybe that's the deepest reason a book like this can comfort us at night. Not in spite of its darkness, but because it faces the dark honestly and still finds the human warmth inside it. We carry hard things more easily when someone tells us the truth about them, gently, and stays beside us while we hold them. That's what Capote did. That's what this book still does. So that's the history behind the pages: a famous writer, a small town, a terrible crime, and 6 years that made one and unmade the other. All of it now folded quietly into the book. There's one more thing worth saying softly here in the dark about what this book gave to every story that came after it. We'll touch that next, and then we'll let the night take us. For now, just rest in what you've heard. The book exists. The people were real. The love was real. And the telling of it, however costly, became a lasting gift to us all. Capote once said the book finished him, that after Holcomb he was never the same man. Maybe some truths are too heavy to carry and set down unchanged. He gave them to us anyway, and we receive it here on a quiet night decades later. The same story, the same wheat, the same questions, passed gently from his hands to ours and now to yours. That's the quiet miracle of books. A writer in 1966, a town in 1959, a reader tonight, all joined for a moment in the same dark by the same words. You don't have to stay awake for the rest. The meaning is already in you now, settling like dust after a long day. Let it settle. Let yourself grow heavy and warm. We'll spend the last little while just winding down, the way you let a fire burn low before bed, a few soft thoughts about why this book still matters, and then sleep. Think of how far we've traveled tonight. From a roadside diner to a warm farmhouse, through a dark night and a long search, into a courtroom, a cell, and at last, here to rest. You carried all of it gently. That's no small thing. Hard stories ask something of us, and you gave it, your attention, your tenderness, your willingness to understand. And tomorrow, when the day asks too much again, you can remember this, that even in the hardest stories there is warmth and meaning, and the quiet company of someone reading beside you. The wheat is still moving out there, slow in the night wind. The stars are turning, patient and bright, and you're here, safe, warm, growing sleepy, just as it should be. We're nearly at the end of our reading, just a little further into the soft dark. Let your thoughts drift wherever they wish. There's nothing left you need to follow closely. This book has been read on 1,000 quiet nights like this one, by people just like you looking for a story to hold while the day let go. Now it holds you too. In a few minutes, we'll say our goodnights soft and slow. But first, let the meaning of it all settle one last gentle layer deeper, like snow falling on the quiet Kansas fields. There's nothing more to solve tonight. No question you must answer. Just the soft fact of having been somewhere true and human for a while, and now the slow turn toward sleep. So let your eyes close, if they haven't already. We'll bring the night to its gentle end together, with a few last soft words, and then quiet. Stay just a little longer. Let me tell you, softly, what this one book set loose in the world, because almost every true story you've ever been gripped by owes something to that Kansas night. Before this book, true crime was mostly cheap and lurid. Capote made it literature. He proved a real crime could be told with the depth and beauty of a great novel. Every serious true crime book since has walked through the door he opened. Every careful, humane account of a real tragedy carries a little of his DNA in it. Think of all the documentaries, the podcasts, the series people fall asleep to now, that whole vast appetite for true stories told with care. It traces back, in part, to Holcomb. But Capote's gift wasn't just the genre. It was the empathy. He insisted that even the people who do terrible things are people, that understanding is harder and braver than condemnation. That idea was radical in 1966, and it's still radical now. It's so much easier to hate from a distance. Capote made us come close, and closeness changes everything. The book also changed how writers worked. The deep, patient reporting, the years of listening, the refusal to settle for the easy surface of a story. That patience became a standard, and it raised hard questions that we still wrestle with. When is it right to tell someone else's tragedy? Where is the line between honoring a story and using it? Capote never fully answered those questions, and neither have we, but by living them so publicly, so painfully, he made every honest writer after him more careful, more humble, more aware. There were films too. The book was adapted, and later Capote's own story was told on screen, The Writer and the Killer, the strange devotion, the terrible cost. People can't stop returning to it. Why do we keep returning? I think because the questions never close. Every generation looks at Perry and Dick and the Clutters and asks again, how? Why? What would I have done? And maybe because it reassures us strangely to know that someone faced the very worst and made something beautiful and true from it. That darkness, looked at honestly, need not only destroy. That's a comforting thought to carry into sleep. That even the hardest things, told with care, can become a kind of light for the people who come after. So tonight, this old book has done for you what it has done for millions. It kept you company, it told you the truth, it asked you to feel and to understand, and now it lets you rest. We've nearly reached the end of our night together. Just a little more soft, quiet ahead. Let your body grow heavy. There is nothing left to do but drift. The Clutters are at peace. Perry and Dick are long gone. Capote rests too. All the people of this story have laid their burdens down. And now, so can you. Whatever your day held, whatever weight you carried into this night, you can set it on the floor beside the bed. It will keep until morning. Nothing here needs you to hold it. Out in the Kansas dark, the wheat keeps its slow, patient breathing. The stars wheel on. The world turns gently, with you on it carried safely through the night. There's nothing left to understand tonight. The understanding will keep, for now, just the warmth of the bed, the softness of the dark, and the slow tide of sleep coming in. I'll stay reading a little longer, in case you're still here. But you don't have to listen now. Just let my voice be part of the quiet, like wind over the wheat. It's strange and lovely how a book about the worst of things can leave you feeling tender. That's what truth does. When it's told with love, it softens, even as it tells. So carry that tenderness into sleep with you. Toward yourself, first of all. You did everything you could today. That's enough. It was always going to be enough. Tomorrow will ask its own things of you, but tomorrow can wait. Right now, there is only the dark and the warmth and the slow, soft breathing of the night around you. We're almost at our good nights now. Just a few soft words left. The story is finished, the meaning is held, and the night opens its arms to take you the rest of the way. Let the names settle softly one last time. Herb, Bonnie, Nancy, Kenyon, Perry, Dick, Alvin, Truman, all of them real. All of them held for a while in this telling. Now we let them go gently back into the wide quiet of the past. They were here, they mattered, and tonight, for a while, we kept them company. That was a good thing to do. There's a particular peace in finishing a hard story well, a quiet that feels earned. You've reached it now, rest here in it. There's no more road to walk tonight. Notice how soft your breathing has become, how heavy and warm your body feels. That's the night doing its kind work. Let it. You don't have to help it along. In a moment, I'll say goodnight to the story and to you, but there's no rush. We'll get there slowly, the way we got through everything else tonight, gently and together. The book will still be here whenever you want it again, on a shelf, in the dark, patient as the wheat. It isn't going anywhere, and neither is this quiet place. You came here tired tonight, maybe carrying more than you said, and you stayed for a hard, beautiful story all the way through that took something gentle and strong in you, I noticed. So let this be your reward, the deep, soft sleep that comes after a story well told. You've earned it. It's waiting for you now, just past these last few words. The wind has settled. The plains are dark and calm. The last lights of Holcomb have gone out, one by one the way they always do. The whole world is ready to rest, and you're ready too. Heavy-limbed, warm, quiet inside. The story has done its work. My voice will fade soon into the dark, and you'll drift the rest of the way alone and safe. This is why we read these old books at night, not for the plot. For this, the quiet at the end, shared with someone in the dark, a small good thing in a hard world. We'll bring it gently to a close now. Stay as long as you like. There's no rush in this last stretch, only soft words, and the slow, kind arrival of sleep. The cedar chest Kenyon was building was never finished, but somewhere, in the warm part of memory, it always will be, sanded smooth, lid closed, waiting for a happier day. Hold that gentler ending in your mind if you like. The pie cooling, the chest finished, the family safe and laughing in a kitchen that stays warm forever, just out of reach of that night. That's where we'll leave them. In the warmth, not the dark, in the living, not the loss. It's the kindest place to set them down, and the truest. They were so much more than that night. And now the night is almost wholly dark, and almost wholly quiet. Just a few last soft words to carry you over the edge into sleep. Stay with me for them, then rest. We've come to the very soft end of the night now. Nothing left to do but rest. Let the dark be gentle around you. The whole story is behind us now, held and understood and gently set down. You don't have to carry any of it into sleep. Out in the dark, the wheat is still. The stars are bright and patient. The world turns slowly, and you turn with it, safe and warm. Let your breathing slow now in, soft out, slower. The way the night breathes, the way the wheat bends and rises in the dark. There's nothing to solve, nothing to fear. Nothing you must do, only the soft dark, and the warmth, and the kind quiet all around. The clutters rest in the warm part of memory. The pie on the counter, the diary by the lamp, the kitchen light, still on, still gold. And Perry rests too, somewhere quiet now. The dreamer with the guitar, we hold the whole of him gently, the wound, the tenderness, all of it. All of them quiet now, all of them at rest. And you drifting toward the same soft place, carried gently by the turning night. Your eyes are heavy now, let them close if they haven't. I'll keep my voice soft and low, just at the edge of the dark. There's no story left to follow, no question left to hold, just the warmth of where you are and the slow, soft tide of sleep coming in. Whatever the day asked of you, you can let it go now. It's done. You're here. You're safe. The night will hold the rest. The wind has gone quiet over Holcomb. The lights are out. The plains are dark and calm and endless, and they hold the little village gently, the way they always have. You did a gentle thing tonight, staying with a hard story to its end. Let that gentleness fold around you now, like a blanket pulled up against the cold. There's nothing more you need from this night but rest. And rest is already here, soft and close, waiting just behind your eyes. Let the names drift away softly now. Let the story settle into the dark. Let everything grow quiet and warm and slow. I'm still here, just at the edge of sleep with you. You don't have to listen. Just let the sound be soft, like wind far out over the grain. The hardest part of the night is long behind us. What's here now is only soft and kind. Stay in it as long as you like. Perry's old denim jacket is folded over a chair in the warm dark, the way he liked to leave it. A small, soft thing, at rest. Like everything now, the wheat keeps its slow watch, the stars keep theirs, and you keep drifting gently deeper into the soft, warm dark, toward sleep. We're nearly at good night. Just a few soft words left between you and sleep. Stay with me for them and then let go completely. Thank you for spending this night here with this hard and beautiful old book. It was kinder having you near. The dark feels softer for it. Let yourself sink the last little way now. Heavy, warm, quiet. There is nowhere you need to be but here, and nothing you need to do but rest. If tonight helped even a little, subscribe. Next week, another book. That's all. No rush. Just settle back into the quiet now, where we'll stay together until you've drifted off. The night is dark and full and kind. The wheat is still. The stars are out, and you are nearly asleep, exactly as you should be. We've reached the very end of our reading. The story is told and held and laid down softly. There's only good night left. The book will still be here tomorrow, so will we. Sleep well. Next time, something older, a different kind of dark. Good night, Nancy. Good night, Perry. Good night, Holcomb. Good night, wheat. The lights are out. The plains are still. The night holds everything. Gently. Nothing left to do now but rest. You're safe. You're warm. The night has you. Let the last of the light fade. Let your breath go slow. Let yourself drift all the way down. We'll be here again, another night with another book. Until then, rest easy. You're not alone in the dark. Good night.